Okay, just thought I'd do another quick video. I'm doing quite a lot lately. I'm quite enjoying this actually. I don't know whether you lot are. As I say, I just do it for enjoyment. If I get some followers, then maybe later on we can do some questions and answers or things like that. Anyway, we'll see how it all goes. Anyway, this isn't about the Quattro. I'm going to come back to the SD Quattro later. But as I said in one of my earlier videos, what I do is mainly wildlife photography, and I thought maybe some of you might wonder what do I use for that. Well, this is my Sony A7 IV. You see with this sticky protective thing on it, and I've got this, and this is the Tamron 150 to 500 millimeter. And this is the lens I really want to talk about. The reason I want to talk about it is because I recently sold the Sony 200 to 600, and I had both this and the Sony. I had both lenses for a little while because I didn't know which lens to keep, which one I preferred. And I had a bit of a row on Facebook with some American twat, Sony fanboy. He didn't seem to understand what I was actually saying. I think he took some exception to the fact that I was almost saying the Sony wasn't as good as this, and it's not what I was saying at all. You know how things go on forums sometimes. He's just talking bollocks. And I was asked this by a couple of friends of mine actually, which lens is better. And it's not a case of one lens being better than the other. I mean, and I'm talking from using both lenses. I'm not talking from reading reviews or, listening to other people's opinions. This is my real world experience of using both lenses, and I decided to keep this. Now I'm going to go through two simple things. The most important things, when it comes to image quality, I couldn't tell the difference between them. I really couldn't. Maybe under some scientific magnifying glass you might see some differences. I don't know. I'm not interested in those kind of differences. Real world differences are virtually, well, they're non-existent. The AF system, I mean, this is where Tamron have really upped their game. The difference between the AF and the tracking was no difference. There was no difference at all. This works just as well. I mean, Tamron have changed the game on that. There was a time when third-party lenses would never be as good as your native lenses. That's not the case anymore. Tamron have changed that. I don't know about the other lenses, I can't speak, but for this lens, yeah, I couldn't tell the difference. I wasn't losing or gaining anything with one lens over the other. The only advantage for me is obviously the 600 millimeters, but this is a 33 megapixel. I've also got the A7R4, which I am considering selling because I don't really use it, and I don't really. 60 megapixels is overkill for me. 33 is enough. I had a 24 megapixel camera and I would crop on that quite happily. This is 33. I don't need 60. So, it's a bit of an overkill mistake buying that camera, though it's still a great camera. So I'm considering selling it. I don't know yet. I did put it on eBay actually, and it did sell, but I don't know what it is. Be warned, by the way, if you're on eBay lately, I've had about 3 in the past 2 months, and you're getting some mentally ill people that bid on things that they've no intention of buying. I don't know what it is. I never used to have this, but I've had 3 in a month. Or 2 months, is it? Yeah, about 2 months. And you know straight away that the win. And I had this last night. I actually did put it on eBay, and you know, it had some weird foreign name, and this is not against foreigners, but it was a weird Imran Murak or something. Only had 9 feedbacks. Hadn't used eBay for over a year. I knew it was dodgy. I cancelled the transaction. I've and he hasn't even bothered to email me and say, why did you cancel the transaction? So that confirms for me that it was a dodgy buyer. I don't know what's the matter with people. So if you do sell on eBay, be warned. There are some really funny people going about at the moment. Anyway, back to the lens. So what's the advantages of the Sony? Well, you've got the 600mm, but as I say, I think that's offset now a bit by the cropping capabilities of these cameras. I don't think it's a major... It's better to have 600 than 5, but it's not a deal breaker. This is 6.7 versus 6.3. Yeah, that's a minor. I don't really find that really makes much difference in the real world. You know, neither of these are going to be low light. You know, you're going to want good light for using either of these lenses anyway. 6.3, 6.7. It's no big deal. It's a non-issue. Internal focusing, I do love that about the Sony lens. I do love that, I've got to say. I wish they made all lenses like that, but unfortunately they don't. And again, it's not enough to be a deal breaker. So what is it I preferred over this? It's basically the size and the weight, and the nearest focusing distance. I often miss shots with the 200 to 600 because the minimal focus distance is like 9 feet, which is a long distance. If you're walking around and a bird lands in front of you, like 3, 4, even 6 or 7 feet away, you've got the Sony lens, you're not going to focus on it. You know, it's not going to happen. And I missed a lot of shots that way. It's 2 feet, so that's a big deal. Now, I know you buy it for the long end, but there are times when you need the shorter end. And, you know, when you've got such a long focusing distance versus a shorter focusing distance, it does make a difference. And the size and weight. I mean, this is still quite a weighty lens. This weighs about 0.5 kilogram less than the Sony. But because it's so much shorter, it just makes walking around with it so much easier. It really does. I mean, it still weighs a fair bit, I've got to say. This isn't no lightweight lens by any stretch of the imagination. But it is better than, and it's for if you do most your work on a tripod, get the 200 to 600. If you do most your wildlife photography walking around and hand holding, get this one. It's as simple as that. You know, this is much better for walking around with. I would get the one with the extra reach if you were working on a gimbal or on a tripod most of the time. Then it's a no-brainer. Anyway, I just thought I'd just make that comparison, and I'd show you my Sony A7, which is what I use for wildlife, and that's my wildlife gear. And I'll see you in the next one. I'm going to go through, so I'm going to show you how this works, the SD Quattro, and go through the menu system. And you know, and I love this camera, I really do. It's a quirky one, as you know, but anyway, I'll speak about that in the next one. Bye bye.